Hey everyone, History Mystery Man back again. It's been a while. Good to see you again. I really don't have any agenda at all today. I was just headed west from Salem on my way to the National Boyhood Memorial of Abraham Lincoln, where he spent 14 years of his early life, his formative years. I guess I'm missing Abe, and I wanted to go visit with him today. And that's where I'm headed, so no particular agenda. And as I was going through Livonia, Indiana, I've noticed this little business called Our Menagerie. They buy, sell, trade, a couple that works here, and it's just a fascinating little business. And I took a little time to peek inside and wanted to show it to you en route to very near Santa Claus, Indiana. Today would be my next destination, the Boyhood Memorial of our 16th President, Abraham Lincoln. Welcome aboard. Good to see you again. I was surprised to see you open today on Labor Day. So what is it that you guys do here?
We just got a little buy, sell, and trade shop. We just opened it first of the year. We got a little mixture of everything in there, old, new, marlin blue. So.
How interesting. And here in Livonia, Indiana, what is it that made you wake up one day and decide, I want to open up a buy and sell shop, trade, the whole deal in Livonia, Indiana? Where'd it come from?
Well, we've always bought, sold, and traded, but we've always been on the road, and I'm a little tired of doing that anymore. We live just down the road a ways. This property had sat vacant for a couple of years. We thought we would buy it just so we could have a garden in the back.
Well, you still can.
Yeah, we live in the woods up there, so there was no way to have a garden. So we bought it, and as we started cleaning it up, weeds, tearing down the older buildings, people stopped and said there used to be a little antique store here, and they said we should reopen it. So we thought we'd give it a try.
I love it.
Yep.
Is it hard? I mean, can you make it in this tiny itty bitty little town? No. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is like a hobby then?
Yeah, I have a real world job.
Oh.
So, we're mixing the two.
Can I peek inside?
You sure can. It's open. Come this way. We've got a mixture. Right now, all of our inventory is ours right now. We don't have any consignment or rent out any booth space.
Okay.
I really couldn't charge anybody to set anything up because we had no idea what kind of traffic we would get. So,
okay.
And right now, we're still a cash and carry store. We haven't made that move to the credit card.
I love your
machine,
store.
So,
it's beautiful.
Like I said,
It's very inviting.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get in here, you want to hang.
Now, this building was in pretty bad shape, and Bryce, my husband, did it all. He did the electrical work, the insulating.
Isn't it nice to have a handyman?
Yeah. He's a pretty crafty man, too. If you want to look at some specifics, Bryce makes the leather bags.
Really?
These are all handmade.
That's interesting.
Just finished this one right here. This one's really nice.
He makes them?
Yes, all handmade and hand stitched too. This is not done on a machine.
That's fascinating.
We love our skylights. That really brightened it up.
Oh, it really does.
We've actually
I love
had
it.
some customers stop by that said they had been in here years ago when there was another store, and they said it was pretty dark and dingy. So they're all impressed.
Well, it's bright and cheery now.
And some of this stuff will go out front, so it's a little.
What's your most prized possession that you would have a hard time? Everything's for sale with a price on it. But,
sure.
But what do you have a most prized possession that you would maybe hate to see go out the door?
My pram. This is probably the oldest piece that I have right here. The wicker work on it is just beautiful, and it is all original.
What'd you call it?
It's a pram.
Pram.
Yeah.
I've never heard that word.
Baby buggy,
A baby buggy, okay.
By the
And where'd you get it?
1890s. I have a lady that called me up and said she'd like to sell it, so we did a deal. And,
well, where do you find most of your stuff?
well, luckily this summer we've just had people come by, meet us, and say, hey, I have this or I have that, and we do some trading and do some buying and reselling. So
I like it. I love it.
Yeah, we love our rocks. I've had rocks since I was 3 years old. Now some of it we don't travel to dig our own anymore. It's not.
But you used to,
feasible.
huh?
We had a little bit, yeah. We've done some quartz digging, some amethyst digging.
You ever find?
We've got a lot of furniture, old and new furniture.
I can see that.
We've got a
Some
little
pretty
bit of
stuff.
everything.
Yeah, you do. It's quite a wide variety.
And we're always looking for other things, you know, and that's the way it mixes up. We thought we'd lean one way or the other once we saw what started to sell, but it sells across the board.
I love it.
Now, where are you based out of?
Oh, I'm from Toledo, Ohio, but I'm kind of based in Salem, Indiana. I don't want to say I was bored. I don't like to use that word, but I wanted to get out and do something and breathe today, and I decided I was going to visit Abraham Lincoln today near Santa Claus at his Boyhood National Memorial.
Yes.
I want to go hike the trails, and I'm a huge Abraham Lincoln fan, and I just like being connected to him in any way I can, and I'm close enough that I thought I'd spend the day doing it. And your store caught my eye driving through, and I actually drove out of Livonia and doubled back and came back, and I got to check this place out.
Well,
What does our menagerie mean? Anything?
Well, a menagerie means a group of many things.
Okay.
So, I thought the letter R would be a little cuter than using our.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh, I love this. Go ahead.
Excuse me.
What kind of scale is that?
I think it's the baby scale.
Okay, baby scale.
Yeah, way the baby.
Really?
I think so.
You were a bundle of joy.
When I was a bundle of joy. That was decades ago. Well, I love this exit entrance. It's really pretty.
Bryce did all the stonework here on the entrance.
What's that little building back there?
That was actually the official telephone exchange of Livonia.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's why this property.
That's where they
is
exchanged the
commercial.
telephone lines inside this little building?
Yep.
Wow, see, that's history that you'd never know, because you'd never know this building was even back here, but
That's why we're
this was the telephone exchange building of Livonia, Indiana. I know, but that's a story. That's the stuff I look for.
That's
The-
why this property was commercially based, because of this. Yeah, and the wind. We get a nice little breeze down here.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. Thanks for having me, gang.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, I've made it to Paoli. They have a beautiful town square as well. Awesome courthouse, but really an interesting place. And I'm looking for, that's 37 north. I want 37 south. Sorry, people waiting on me, but these kind small town people understand. Here we go, 37 south. Beautiful town square in Paoli. We're gonna get on 37 south and head down toward Old 64. So still en route to Lincoln's Boyhood National Memorial. Thought I'd stop briefly in Huntington, Indiana, which is an absolutely charming little town in the southwest corner. About 6,000 people, the population. First platted back in 1837. There's been a post office here since 1842. It officially incorporated as a town in 1866, just a year after the Civil War. But this place is absolutely beautiful. If you ever get the opportunity to stop at Huntington, I encourage you to do it. I'm on famous 4th Street. The streets are lined in brick and the sidewalks are paved in stone. 4th Street has been completely renovated. This is where all the antique shops are and restaurants. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, this is a storybook. At one time noted as Hollywood of the Midwest, there were several movies here shot over the years, including League of Their Own and Hard Rain. But this place has an interesting history. It's charming. It's got personality. It's absolutely beautiful. Welcome to Huntington, Indiana. Very near the Lincoln Boyhood National Memorial here in Dale, Indiana, just a couple of miles away. And whenever I'm in Lincoln country, I like to find connections to Abraham Lincoln, one of whom would be David Turnham, who's buried here in the local cemetery here in Dale. The Turner farm was located just about a mile away from Thomas Lincoln's farm in Spencer County, Indiana. David Turnham and Abraham Lincoln were friends. David was about 6 years older than Abraham, but it was in Turnham's house that Lincoln read the revised laws of Indiana, the 1824 version. And I thought that's interesting. and he's buried right here, David Turnham. Oh, I'm such a sucker for historical marker signs. It almost gets annoying. That's often why I travel alone, but this is where the old homestead of David Turnham was, a childhood friend of Abraham Lincoln. We know that the Turnham homestead was less than a mile away from the Lincoln homestead, so we're very near the Boyhood Memorial. Just wanted to point it out to you. And now in the background, believe it or not, it's the home of the Patriots. The Heritage Hills Patriots High School, where NFL quarterback Jay Cutler went to high school here in Santa Claus, Indiana. How about that? We're here. Lincoln Boyhood National Memorial. Labor Day 2020. Doesn't matter what day it is, there are always people here. It's a beautiful park, and it's where Abraham Lincoln spent his formative years, about 14 years in all, up till he was just 21 when they then moved off into Illinois. But there's a beautiful visitor center here. So nice. I'm not sure it's even open today based on all that's going on, but if nothing else, we just want to go for a walk and reminisce, reflect, and do all those things I do when I match up with my very good friend Abraham Lincoln. You are facing the wooded knoll on which sleeps Nancy Hanks Lincoln, mother of the president, who lived in this Hoosier environment during the formative years of his life from 1816 to 1830. Beyond to the north is marked the site of the humble log cabin where she led him for a little while along the path to greatness. I love it. Well, welcome to the Boyhood National Memorial for Abraham Lincoln. This place was so important to our 16th president, the most formative years of his life. 14 years 7 through 21 were here. So, but whatever happened here, it was big because it would one day produce who I believe is the greatest president our country will ever see. And those young formative years are so important when we still instill all the goods that make us who we are. His mom, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, died of the milk sick here October 5th, 1818. Lincoln was just 9 years old, almost 10. And you can see her little grave marker here. Lincoln actually helped fashion the pine casket that would carry her. And we don't know exactly if she's where this stone is. It wasn't until after Abraham Lincoln became president and was long dead that people began to take note of how great the man was and still is, and they began to retrace his life. So naturally that included his 14 years here in Spencer County, Indiana. Mm-hmm. There was an actual Civil War general that came back to the site that was familiar with the settlers in the area, that came back to the site, and he found the old graveyard, which is behind us up on the hill, and he began marking it off and marking stones where he thought some of the settlers lay, including Abraham Lincoln's aunt and uncle, Thomas and Elizabeth Sparrow, who also died of the milk sick. What was the milk sick? Well, very interesting. They didn't know what it was. And that's one of the reasons why Thomas Lincoln picked up his family after Nancy Hanks Lincoln died and moved off up into Illinois. The milk sick we know now was from cows eating a white snake root plant, which poisoned the milk, which got passed on to humans. Death came quick. It was horrible. Half the settlers in this region died of the milk sick. So it was certainly a terrible thing. But Abraham Lincoln and his mother were very much alike, according to the people that wrote about and knew about Nancy Hanks Lincoln. They were very similar in temperament, intellectually, morally, emotionally. No doubt Lincoln got a lot of his brains from his good mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, who rests here. Well, happy Labor Day 2020 here at the Lincoln Boyhood National Memorial. the Lincolns cultivated certain crops here. Corn would have been one crop, obviously, and this would have been one of the fields that they cultivated. And Lincoln spent many hours behind a plow in that field, and he learned early on that he did not want to earn his living through the back-breaking labor of farm work. He wanted to use his mind. Unfortunately for the rest of our country, that's exactly what he did. Is he taught himself, self-taught in all regards, mathematics, English, grammar, the sciences, history, completely self-taught, and taught himself to be not only one of the finest lawyers, but I think the greatest president ever. Labor Day. So it's interesting that Lincoln absolutely, although he knew he didn't want to make his living through labor, he did very much appreciate it and knew that capital, that thing we're all striving for, the value, the capital, according to Lincoln, could not and did not exist without labor. Labor came first and then the capital, which made labor the more important of the two, because without labor, there can be no capital. And in that field behind me, Lincoln definitely labored. Heading down the Lincoln Spring Trail. This would have been, I don't know, 100 yards or so away from their cabin, where Lincoln and his sister Sarah would come and fetch water from this spring. When the Lincolns first crossed over the Ohio River near Troy, Indiana, in December of 1816, they eventually made it here to Spencer County and lived in a cabin exactly like that. That's, of course, a replica, but very near what they would have lived in. The Lincolns, most historians agree that the Lincolns lived in at least 3 log cabins here, maybe 4, but most of them seemed to settle in at 3. The first of which was an open face camp. It was closed on 3 sides and open on the other, where the fire burned continuously. That was just to get them through the winter before they could build a more permanent cabin. And in 1933, long after Lincoln was gone, they did some excavating in the area, and they did uncover some hearthstones. You see the foundation behind me. They think this was the site of the 3rd cabin that Thomas and Abraham Lincoln built, but they may have never lived in it because there was another scare with the milk sick, and they were soon off to Illinois. But it was in this very peaceful place where Lincoln cut his formative years. I just absolutely love it here. It's beautiful. I could be here all day. Just wanted to quickly point this little home out to you. It's the home of Colonel William Jones, who built this place in 1834. We're in Gentryville still. And Jones had a relationship with Abraham Lincoln. He had a nearby general store and employed Lincoln in the store. Lincoln also butchered hogs for him and did odds and ends around the homestead. But it was here in 1844 when Lincoln came through to visit his boyhood home one final time, stumping for Henry Clay, presidential nominee, that he stayed with Colonel William Jones. They shared the same political views from the Whig Party, but the home of Colonel William Jones, where Abraham Lincoln slept in 1844. Rockport, Indiana, on the Ohio River. The beautiful Spencer County Courthouse. And the Ohio River straight ahead. Under the bluffs here in Rockport, Indiana, at the base of the Ohio River, headed to the exact place where Abraham Lincoln and Allen Gentry boarded a flatboat bound for New Orleans in 1828. In March of 1830, the Lincoln family spent their final night in Spencer County, just about a mile away from their Lincoln farm, with their good friends, the Gentrys. James Gentry commissioned his son Allen Gentry, who was Abraham Lincoln's good friend, commissioned Allen and Abraham to take a stock of dry goods and produce on a flatboat down the Ohio and Mississippi rivers on down to New Orleans. Took a flatboat all the way down, and it was there in New Orleans where Lincoln got his first taste of a slave market. And he is purportedly to have said at the time that if he ever got the chance to hit this thing, he was going to hit it hard. And of course he did when he signed the 13th Amendment just before he was assassinated, abolishing slavery in all of America. But because of his relationship with the Gentrys and his first flatboat ride down to New Orleans in 1828, I traveled 15 miles farther to the south to Rockport, Indiana, here on the Ohio River, because it was right here. There's a marker that commemorates it. Right here is where Allen Gentry and Abraham Lincoln set off on the Ohio, bound for the Mississippi, ultimately for New Orleans. And it happened right here in Rockport, Indiana. In 1844, Abraham Lincoln traveled to his boyhood home in Spencer County, Indiana. One final time, he was stumping for presidential candidate Henry Clay, whom Lincoln very much admired. And October 30th, 1844, he gave a speech at the Spencer County Courthouse. Now, that's the newer courthouse. The one Lincoln spoke out of is long gone, but it was on that site. But it was here in 1844 he visited his boyhood home for the final time. He wrote a poem about it too, just one passage. My childhood home I see again, and sadden with the view. And still as memory crowds my brain, there's pleasure in it too. There was certainly sadness. He lost his mother here, and we should also point out his older sister Sarah died in childbirth in 1828 in the little village of Little Pigeon Creek in Spencer County where they lived. So yes, indeed, there was sadness. And when he spoke that night here in Rockport, Indiana, at the Spencer County Courthouse, he stayed at the Rockport Tavern, which is just adjacent to the courthouse across the street. The Rockport Tavern is long gone, but there's a marker here that lets you know exactly where it was, just up on the little hill here. Abraham Lincoln slept on the night of October 30th, 1844. Here's a story of a lovely lady who grew up in that house right there. While we're in Rockport, Indiana, I wanted to show you the childhood home of Florence Henderson, Mrs. Brady. She did not have a very good childhood. Her father was an alcoholic. Her mother left when she was just 12. And fortunately, some local folks here in Rockport befriended her. They noticed what a great singing voice she had and helped fund her trips to New York, where she studied theater and voice and became what she became. But she finally made it out of Rockport, Indiana. And that little blue house is where she spent much of her childhood.